Hey, Trucker,
Yes.
you like the movie The Money Pit?
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Mayor, do you like the Money Pit?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Great, let's talk about that.
That works for me. So yeah, we have
The the dangers of buying something sight unseen.
pretty much, yeah. Oops, that's a spoiler. That's Army of Darkness. There we go. There you are, Money Pit. There's the movie poster for it with Tom Hanks and Shelley Long. Hey, Trucker,
Yeah,
did you ever like anything Shelley Long was in?
not really. Oh Lord, not really, man.
I don't like Shelley Long. I don't think it's not her fault, but they typecast her as the most insufferable person in the world.
I think the only thing I liked her in was Cheers.
Yeah, but she was worse in Cheers than she was in this.
Yeah,
She was a she's an actual demon in Cheers,
well, you know,
which is hilarious
she
because
gets
Frasier's wife Lilith was supposed to be the evil one and she
she
wasn't.
gets typecast a lot.
Yeah, it's not her fault. She's a good actress. She just
So
gets awful roles where she's just insufferable, and this movie was no exception. She,
she she's fallen into the same hole that Sean Bean unfortunately finds himself in. He's trying to do a thing here, please. Shush. He gets typecast as a villain more often than he gets typecast as anybody good. So
yeah,
maybe it's just because Shelley Long just seems like she would be the Karen.
yeah. I guess
She gets typecast as a Karen.
she does a good job at it. I'm not saying no problems with Shelley Long the person, but I hate every character she's ever played, and I've only seen two because I've avoided everything else for that reason.
So are you trying to say that she's one of those actors slash actresses that immediately disincentivizes you to see the movie?
Yeah, definitely. Like I probably would not have watched this movie if I was watching this right after Cheers, and I still didn't learn her name, and I was like, "Oh no, it's Diane!" But I'm already watching it, so I'm not going to turn it off. But boo!
Yeah, it's in my head, the way this movie played out when I first saw it, it's not the thought that my young brain had at the time, but I later was able to put words to it. Whoever wrote this had some private personal experience with buying a distressed property. I think that's what they're called.
But yeah, I mean,
Where like they buy something and then find out much too late that the something had a very thin shellac over it to make it look really good, but they found out that it's actually a giant pile of crap.
that's kind of a weird movie to talk about because I mean, the plot basically goes these newlyweds buy this garbage property and they get tormented by this house, and then for whatever reason the only maintenance man in town that can help with renovations is strictly around to make things even worse and hires an entire circus and biker gang for whatever reason to help him out, and then the circus people and the biker gang make things infinitely worse. Then we have the funniest freak out in movie history with Tom Hanks and
Is this the giant hole
yeah, with the rug.
where he
Oh
he
yeah, when
just he
the
starts
bathtub falls
uncontrollably
through
laughing?
yeah, the bathtub falls through the floor because she couldn't figure out how to turn on the water.
It is the most reasonable crash out in
Yeah.
film history.
Though
It's,
I have to say, and this is just because of my own claustrophobia, I would have divorced her for not being home if I fell through the hole in the floor and I got trapped in that rug for hours. I would have divorced her after that because I wouldn't have been able to. I wouldn't be coming out of that rug the same. So yeah, they eventually threaten. They like sign the divorce papers, and then all of a sudden their garbage house becomes a palace, the way it was meant to be when they bought it. And then for some reason, seeing the house being in pristine condition, they just kind of burn the divorce papers and stay together because movie
The house was like some weird wish
relationship metaphor.
fulfillment genie thing.
It's like a
Or it's
relationship
like,
metaphor or something goofy.
you guys need to learn how to, respect and love each other by working on this house. Oh, you can't do that? Okay, well, poof, the house is beautiful and perfect. And your
Yeah,
relationship is somehow magically also now beautiful and perfect.
I don't think we're doing right by this movie. It's a good movie. We just
Oh,
haven't seen it in a while.
don't get us wrong. It is a good movie, but I haven't seen it recently enough to knock it down bit by bit.
Yeah, same here.
But it's one of those movies where certain parts of it just stick with you.
I feel like this is
And for me, it's the bathtub
yeah.
where he's just staring down at it wide eyed, and then there's like 4 or 5 seconds of nothing but silence, and then he just starts insanely cackling.
I have to I have to say I think this movie might have actually been part of the reason that traumatized me and had me swearing off homeownership until I turned the bright age of 26 and a half.
Well, not for nothing, but owning a house is not as easy as it was 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
Pretty much the hardest time in history to do
Yeah,
anything from tying your shoes to owning a house in the year
it's like
2025 of our Lord.
completely disconnected film and all, but it ties in with the general feeling that we're talking about. When I was young, I always thought Kevin McAllister's house was awesome from
Yeah,
Home Alone. But now, as an adult, I want to know what his dad did to afford that house.
you're probably just a doctor.
But then the other part of my adult brain goes, oh, back then you could probably afford something like that.
Yeah, back then, if you
You
worked at
know,
Burger King, you would have been able to buy something like that, especially in New York City.
it's,
Dude was probably just a bartender.
it's the house is huge. It's like 6,000 square foot house, and it's ridiculously, over proportioned and all that. But back to the movie we're supposed to be talking about. I'm sorry for that little derailment there, but yeah, it's like wasn't the house supposed to be like a million or some odd dollars
Yeah,
on market, but they ended up buying it for like 100, 200,000, something like that.
like 2 to 300,000. It was they were giving it away.
Yeah, it's just makes me
Here's
upset.
here's the here's my adult brain working. If it had gotten to the point where things were falling through the floor, if they would have just hired that crew to bulldoze the house and just sold the land or held on to the land for a little bit and then just
They they
bought
could have
something
made their money
later, they
back.
would have tripled their money. They would have bought a functioning house in 5 years. They just you take the small L, sell some of the valuables out of the house, sell some of the copper pipes, rent an apartment for a couple of years, sell the property, and then go buy something even better for that functions.
Yeah, let's see. The
That's a
money pit.
yeah. Back when Tom Hanks was young,
I'm gonna pull up the IMDb for this bad boy.
probably a good idea. I think we
1986. Oh,
good year for movies.
old. Sitting at a reasonable 6.4 out of 10.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I think it could go a little higher, but I don't know. I'm not a movie critic.
No, neither am I, but well, with how movie critics have been scoring a lot of stuff, we could be. Me and you could perfectly, we could be movie critics. We could be really good movie critics.
Yeah,
We
maybe.
just we just stick with our, tried and true method of, do you like this? Yes. Do you like this? No. We refuse to elaborate further.
Yeah, I mean that's. I think this is what the show's really become, is just a parody of people that will sit there and dissect hours of. They'll turn 30 minutes of film into 6 hours of content. And I really think that, when they painted the house, that was like, supposed to symbolize, but shut up. Just watch the movie, asshole. These
It's like
symbolism
those
freaks, they drive me nuts.
it's like those guys that want to say, you know, like did you ever see Boy in the Bubble?
Nah.
That's another, reasonably old movie, but it was literally just this kid who had an absolutely shit immune system and couldn't go outside. So in order to get around that, they just kind of built this little bubble suit for him to wear. And they somehow had they like certain critics turned that into like a political critique.
Yeah.
And it's like, look, if he go outside without suit, he dies. Why must you insist that there be like subtext here?
Because without
If you
subtext, they can't fill the page with gobbledygook.
if you want subtext, there's a million other Art Nouveau movies you can go watch
They're getting paid
that
30.
are
They're getting paid 39 cents a word. They gotta fill that page.
gonna be like that school assignment where you need 1,000 words and you're just like, I don't have 1,000 words, nor do I need 1,000 words to describe why this thing is this way or this thing is that way.
Give me 6 sentences. I'll sum up anything.
The Money Pit is a great movie for individuals who find themselves in a position similar to the characters. I think is was Walter and Anna, I think is their names.
Yeah.
It's been a while, but it it is legitimately one of those things where you're like, you never think about how expensive a home can be until you find yourself a homeowner and something goes wrong.
I think that's a good place to leave it, honestly.
See, what causes me the shudders is how much that big hole cost to fix.
The bathtub alone, just replacing the bathtub is ridiculous.
Yeah, because wasn't it like a big old,
It was
like,
huge.
it was a big old, like, clawfoot
It was a
monstrosity of a bathtub?
William Howard Taft's bathtub made it into their house,
Big boy Taft need big boy bathtub.
and the fact that that thing didn't create a crater that went straight down to the core of our planet was something to be astonished. That film crew had to have like dug a 30-40 foot pit underneath the floor filled with crash mats for Olympic athletes and then
Oh,
just
no,
prayed that it
no
held.
doubt. Because you realize there's some level of practical effect to it because it's really easy to get a bathtub to fall through a floor.
Yeah.
But making sure that nothing bad happens when gravity and physics meet together in one little pile at the bottom of that fall is kind of an expensive chore.
Let's see, that movie came out in 1986. That bathtub would have just now hit the planet's core right now as we're filming this.
Let's see how much money. Let's see how much money it made.
That's a good idea.
That's something I kind of want to fool around with in these. Had a budget of 18.4 million and it made 55 million. So
That's a success.
a box office success.
Maybe we should start adding a success fail card to these things.
Well, see, in my opinion, that can be a double-edged sword because sometimes a movie will make an ass ton of money, but a lot of people hate it.
True. James
Then there's going to
Cameron's
be some
Avatar.
movies. then there's going to be some movies where everyone loves it, but it didn't make anything.
True.
Our very first episode, 1408, is an excellent example of that.
I don't know. I feel like we've thoroughly talked about this one.
Yeah, you you said James Cameron's Avatar. I want to complain about it, but we have an episode dedicated for that later.
Or
It's on the list.
it's either later or already happened. We don't know when these are uploading. We're just filming them all in a row.
Yeah, because we're not really deciding which one goes first.
Well, I think 1408 is a good one to go first.
Well,
We shouldn't be
by the
talking
time
about
you see,
that like this. Let's
by the
get this
time you see this one, 1408 will already be out. So
for sure.
we're safe on that one. But you're right. We really shouldn't be talking about this like that.
We're just gonna confuse people. All right,
Yeah.
give us a band or
Pull up
song.
my phone and I'm gonna let Shuffle do the work for me.
That's a good idea.
Ooh. Subdivisions by the band Rush.
Cool. Uh, Nutshell by Alice in Chains. Why are we doing this like we're just being forced by gunpoint to read off a sponsorship? Yeah,
I
Nutshell.
don't know, man. We're just recommending songs and bands and stuff.
True. Yeah, Nutshell, Alice in Chains. Good one. Go listen to it.
Very good one.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.